You are listening to Strength Over All, a weightlifting podcast. Thank you for checking out episode 21 of Strength Over All. This is Rob, and I'm extremely excited today to have Danny Camargo on the podcast. He is a Team USA athlete, now a senior international coach for Team USA, and has a gym, or if I'm not mistaken, maybe a couple gyms. We'll get into that. But a couple. Yeah, of Oli Concepts in Florida. So, Danny, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'd love to start out, that you are a Team USA international athlete. I'd love to kind of start out with you giving a little rundown of your athlete history, from how you got into the sport through your athletic career.
Funny story. Actually, I knew nothing about the sport, didn't even know that it existed. I'm currently 39 years old, and I got into weightlifting and was taught weightlifting when I was 12. And been doing it the whole time. And I played a lot of different sports. I was blessed with my dad's genetics, man. So played almost everything: soccer, baseball, team sports, individual sports. I actually dabbled in a little gymnastics, did quite a bit of tumbling before I met weightlifting. And the reason I got into it was I was always small, even if I had some athletic talent, and I loved football. I understood the game. I loved playing defense, knew what I was doing, but just got trampled, man.
Right, yeah.
And it sucked. And my older brother, who was a starting linebacker for the local high school, says, if you really want to get good at football, if you want to be a starter, you have to get stronger. So he encouraged me to visit him after school one day and do general, weight training, and we had no clue what the hell we were doing.
Oh, yeah. I think that's how most people start, too.
Yeah, it was funny. And I said, okay, I just want to get big and strong. So I walk in. I was 12 going on 13. And I had just left the middle school hours, and my brother was pumping weights, all machines back then. Right. And I walked in. He says, all right, grab this. Here's a bench press. Do that. And he was just big brother helping his little brother out. And a dean of the school who was in charge of looking over the gym after hours, walks over. He recognized that I was not a high school student, gave me a hard time about it. And my brother stuck up for me. He said, Coach, I'm just trying to help my little brother out. Well, he permitted me to stay. And a little bit later, he walks over to me, starts asking me questions, and then asks me if I knew anything about weightlifting. Looking back now, he was recruiting me. That's what he was doing.
Right.
And I said, no, I don't know what that is. And he pointed at a couple guys. They were, I think, collegiate level guys at the time doing some clean and jerks. And he says, it'll make you strong for football. So I said, all right, I'll do it. His assessment, which is funny, his evaluation of me was put your hands on top of your head, interlock your fingers. Show me how far you can squat, remaining flat-footed. That's all he told me. Mm-hmm. And I did it, but being that I dabbled in some gymnastics, I had the awareness. I produced it for him, stood up, and I said, like that? And he says, grab a barbell right now. And
that's awesome.
He taught me snatch first. And that was it. I actually went home, raved about it, quit every sport for the rest of my life from that moment on, and specialized in the sport. And I fell in love with it, man, like everyone else has over the last 5 years, and it's about time.
Yeah. It's funny that, that was your coach's cue of just like, hey, just do a squat. And, I know, I'm sure you do the same thing. I think a lot of people do this, but I constantly, if I'm like walking through the grocery store or like down the sidewalk, or if I'm anywhere in public and I see someone, like, I think I have, not that I was ever like this, but like, I don't have that mindset of like, oh, look at that, hot mama walking down. I'm like, oh, whoa, that person would be really good at squats. Or like whatever. I see someone, I'm like,
yeah, man, it's all athletically based.
Right, yeah. Or just anyone like looking at like proportions or seeing someone bend down to pick something up. I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
if they would just do a snatch and clean and jerk, they'd probably be really good.
Yeah. What do you know about the snatch and clean and jerk?
Right,
I'm
yeah.
with you. I'm with you. That's very funny. Yeah.
So now that was your intro into the sport. How long was it before you started competing?
Funny enough, I think it was about 60 days, 2 months.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And I remember, here's what's really funny about answering that question is I remember saying, but I'm not ready yet. And my coach, who then therefore became my developmental coach, right? My first coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, define ready. And I said, I'm not strong enough. And he says, do you know how to perform a snatch without killing yourself? I go, well, yeah. He says, do you know how to perform a clean and jerk? And I said, of course, coach. And he says, then you're ready. It is okay to go to a competition with no expectation of winning, but rather experience. Let's get you comfortable being on stage. One day you'll need it. And I'm like, oh, man, yeah, okay, whatever. So with some pressure, I went, and I thought I was already in love, man. But the feeling, the stress that I had getting on stage, first of all, the discomfort of wearing a singlet for my first time.
Right, yeah. That's at a very, I guess, vulnerable age. You just want to be cool in front of everybody.
Dude, I was prepubescent.
Yeah.
And I was a boy, so I hated it. And I wish I can produce a photograph for you right now, but the singlets of those days aren't the cool ones that they have now.
You're right, yeah.
Really nervous. I actually felt sick. I didn't like it until I dropped my last clean and jerk, though. And I dropped it and walked away. I did well. I mean, he always set me up for success, so it was a 6-for-6 performance because I probably was operating at like an 80%.
Right.
But I walked away and realized, even though I hated going through it, it was over. I wanted more. I wanted to do it again. And so I got bit by the bug. So I started competing right away. And it was about 8 months later that I qualified for my first junior nationals. I went, competed. I think I placed last. Still loved it. I don't care. I went 5 for 6, And
that's awesome.
That was it. So that was, funny enough, that was the winner of 1992.
Oh, wow.
You're getting old when you identify events by their years. But
yeah.
that was 92. In 1994, so you're looking at about 2.5 or 3 years of being involved in the sport, and developing. I had gone to every junior and youth event that was available for me or that I could attain. The Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, USA Weightlifting, at the time, it was USWF, the Weightlifting Federation, announced that they were going to begin to bring high school students as full-time residents if they were willing to move away from home, finish high school at the local high school in Colorado, and begin the full-time training at a younger age. And I wanted a piece of that, having been to some camps. I'm so saddened that this year, they closed the doors on that program.
Yeah.
Meant a lot to me because of what it did for me as a person, as a man, and certainly as an athlete, future coach. So it was, really sad this year when I saw that closing. But there was like 3 chances to earn, and it was all subjective. It was based on, sure, how strong you were, but how strong they felt you could be. Okay. And a few other factors. And my coach just said, you don't worry about the criteria. I'll prepare you for the criteria. You just have to perform. And those 3 chances were an American Open, which I believe was 93. The next year, it was a juniors and a senior nationals of 94. And then they would make a selection, and I got chosen, man. I got the job. That summer, as a junior in high school, becoming a senior in high school, I left home, and I made it. I survived the Olympic Training Center for 4 years, getting my butt beat every single day, and I would do it all over again, man, if I had a chance.
Yeah, that's great. And so kind of segueing into coaching, when did that become a thing for you? Relatively
quickly after I retired. If I may, I'd like to say why I even retired.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And it's a sensitive subject. It's funny because my experience helped me help others years later with their decision to retire. Much like my coach's assessment and his pushing me to compete a moment ago, I just told you, I say that now. Athletes come to me and they've been lifting for a while, and I say, it's time to compete, but I'm not ready, coach. And I find myself saying, define ready.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they'll say, I'm just not strong enough. And man, I have the exact same speech, and it works. But my retirement was kind of a bad breakup. I was in love with something that was causing me a lot of stress and unhappiness, man. It's like a bad relationship, man. You break up to make up. You break up to make up.
Right. Yeah.
And the last 6 months were quite miserable. I think I was just sick and tired of being in a constant state of inflammation.
Oh yeah.
I was training at a high level. I was blessed enough that the Olympic coach, or the national coach at that time, Dragomir Jerusalem, who took over as my developmental coach in that format, remained involved with my athletic career to the end, actually the beginning of my coaching career when I got there. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But he was an amazing, amazing coach, two-time Olympian at the OTC, training me every day. But it was tough, man. It was a really, really hard regimen that I did clean, if you know what I mean.
Right, of course, yeah.
I didn't, I was A, never exposed to, and I'm glad. But B, it was just never something on the table for me. We got drug tested very frequently up there. A little bit less frequent now because of probably budget, although it still happens quite a bit here. Mm-hmm. And I was maintaining a really high level of training just on whatever physiology that my body could withstand. And I made it 4 years. But man, I was just getting beat up, and I needed a vacation. I needed time off looking back, but that's not something that they would give you,
Right.
They invested a lot of time in you, almost militant back then. I know the program had certainly changed. The culture had changed up there up until late. But when I was there, very strict, very militant-like. And I just woke up one morning and said, I'm over it. I can't do this, man. I've slept 9.5 hours without waking up one time, and I still cannot move.
Yeah.
And I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
I consulted with some people, including my coaches, and, it was either I quit or I suck it up. There was no in between, man. If they would have given me, or if the option would have existed to say, take a month vacation, eat like crap, don't worry about it, come back in the future, mentally cleansed,
right?
I would have survived a lot longer, but that wasn't the case. And so I took the option I felt was best for me. I came home, I retired, and for a year I soul searched, man. I got hit with what most elite athletes do. What do you do now?
Yeah.
And it was worse because I was a weightlifter. No one even knew what that
right,
was.
Yeah, you didn't have a huge bank account to go with that.
Absolutely
soul searching.
not. Absolutely not. So it was harder to figure out what to do. My other interest in my life was law enforcement. I was always interested in being a cop or a detective, and so I finished my degree, within that year, and got into the police academy. Still, kind of, at a loss, but feeling like I found something else for the next phase of my life. Well, within those 12 months, I decided to, on a whim, go back to the high school and see my coach, who started me off almost 9 years before this moment that I'm describing, and just to say hello, and he was still angry at me for quitting. And I said, Coach, I didn't quit, man. I retired. And he says, you're 21 years old. You're still young, which is true, man. Biologically.
Yeah.
I could have done it longer, man. I just 9 years of specializing, you know?
Yeah. It's a long time.
Very. And, I think you know this now, right? I mean, that's kind of a controversial. That's a hot topic. When is the best age to specialize? Mm-hmm. I'm a product of specializing young, and it was an amazing career I'll never regret or give back. I don't know if that's the case in every athlete, but
right.
walking into the gym after about a year